So the good news is this will be getting the slave from over here, so you at least get that trade. For today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a championless aggro deck, and I expect the intro to be a bit wordy, a bit long, so I'm going to go ahead and say now, if you just care about the games, you can use time tags, jump ahead. If you want the deck list, deck code will be in the video description, and if you want a link to Mobalytics, that'll be in the video description as well. So regarding the deck itself, I wanted to share this one for a couple of reasons. The first reason is I secretly love championless decks. They go against the grain. When you think about Riot and what they do with League of Legends for their intellectual property, there is an awful lot that goes into the design and look and feel of a champion, because we're meant to fall in love with champions. We're meant to have our favorites. I love Vi, I love Malzahar, Ahri, etc., etc. And that's all by design. Like, that's how they market their property. And so Legends of Runeterra leans on all of the work that League of Legends has already done. But from a design standpoint, from a game design standpoint, Legends of Runeterra also leans heavy on champions, because many of our decks are really just puzzles where we are trying to kind of crack the puzzle for how to level up a champion and then take advantage of that champion in our deck building. Many of the regions have identities built around the champions within them as well. And I'll put it this way, right? Imagine playing a deep deck without Nautilus. It's really hard to do. The champions are kind of the central driver of many of your archetypes in your deck building in this game. Imagine TLC without Lissandra. It just doesn't exist, right? You're literally building an entire deck around leveling up that champion and then abusing what happens once she has leveled up. And so when a championless deck pops up, I get a little bit of extra enjoyment out of it, just because, again, it goes against the grain and it's a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of an expression, right? Self-expression to say, hey, I'm not going to solve this puzzle the way you intend me to. And because this is a championless deck, I wanted to share it. Now, the other reason I wanted to share it, I said there was a couple. So the second reason is this deck actually performs pretty well. There is a champion version of it. This is really just the bones of Azir Burn, but I took out Azir and Darius because I don't think that they add a ton to the deck. If you really want to play them, you can put them in, but I looked at the list and I was like, why is this running Azir? I mean, other than Azir is just naturally a good card, I was like, why is this running Azir? And then Darius is kind of the same thing. Darius is a great card and a good top end, but I looked at the list and I thought to myself, you know, this doesn't need Darius in it. So we took him out, and it's been performing pretty well for me, though I have not had the opportunity to ladder the way that I have wanted to as of late. Which I guess I should mention, you may have noticed that videos and my streaming schedule have been intermittent at best, and there are reasons for that as well. First reason is that I have felt drained since the last balance patch, as most members of the community have. However, I will admit that I do not feel drained necessarily because of the meta, because I've played in far worse metas than this, in far worse card games than this. But I will say that it can be very hard to enjoy something when everybody around you is negative about the thing you are enjoying. The best maybe example or analogy that I can give is, you know, when I was in middle school, so we're talking like 95, 96, and Magic the Gathering was gaining popularity, but obviously was not the juggernaut that it is today. You know, I'd be playing with friends during lunch at like middle school, and me and the 3 other people playing would all be enjoying Magic and having a good time. But then when everybody else around you tells you how much the game sucks and you're a nerd and etc., that can sap your will to play. That can ruin your experience. And so I don't want to invalidate anybody's feelings in the community, and you are allowed to voice your opinions and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying that all of that kind of communal negativity is impacting me, even though I am not nearly as upset about it. And maybe I'm not being a harsh enough critic. That's entirely possible. I've played a lot of card games that were just objectively worse, and I've played in a lot of metas that are objectively worse. And so maybe my trauma from having to play through like Arcbound Ravager Affinity when it was in standard and other things like that, maybe my trauma from surviving Tessel and Artifact, I say surviving, but like I went down with the ship basically, or even non-card games like the Culling that I loved. Maybe I'm the weird one just because I keep looking at things and going, well, it could be worse because I've been through worse. I don't know. I just know that I don't think Runeterra is in as terrible of a spot as it seems, and I've certainly seen worse. I think that the real crime of Riot was that they have just set the bar so high that when this game starts to perform at levels that the rest of the industry are consistently at, it feels like a step down for this game. I think that's the real crime here. But enough about the meta. That's not the only reason that my videos have been intermittent. My extended family has also had a lot of chaos and turmoil as of late, so I've been kind of caught up with that, whether it's, you know, some folks going through a divorce or some people traveling cross country and trying to stay with members of family for like weeks at a time for no apparent reason. And my Aunt Ruth just passed away from lung cancer. I still don't even know what day that funeral service is going to be. There's just been an awful lot going on. And so with work being busy, and then when I get done with work, you deal with family insanity. And then on top of that, you sit down and you finally want to enjoy your, you know, thing that you use to escape. In my case, it's content, and it's Legends of Runeterra, and it's, you know, it can be, again, very draining when that stuff is negative too. So it's just, it's felt like it's been on all fronts lately. And so the videos have just not been there because when I do sit down to record, it has felt low quality. In fact, I'll probably edit the hell out of this one. I normally don't do a ton of editing, but I can already tell that I'm feeling ranty and nobody wants to hear that anyway. So I don't know how much of this I'm going to keep in, but we're going to talk about the deck now. If you made it this far, woo, you are a saint. Let's talk about the actual deck. It is just aggro. This is going to be Shurima Noxus aggro. It's basically Azir burn, but as I said before, I looked at the deck and I thought, like, you know, does Azir really need to even be in there? And I think it normally has Darius like as a 1 or a 2 of on the top end, and I think Darius is fine. If you want to throw Darius back in, have at it. But I looked at it and I said, you know, does Darius need to be in there? I want to rock something championless, and so that's what we're doing. So we've got Bakai Reaper because it's just a great 1-drop, but it's not as insane as it is in, say, like Nasus Thresh. But we've got Dune Keeper because it's great on 1, Rear Guard because this deck really just cares about attacking anyway, and so a 3/2 on 1 is great, and Saboteur. That's right, 12 1-drops. You want to be playing something on 1. You want to be mulliganing, likely for multiple 1-drops, because if you can go 1 on 1 and then 2 more on 2, then you're really setting yourself up for the aggressive opener that you need. We've got currently 3 House Spiders. This, I think, could be trimmed for other 2-drops if you want to try something else. When I say trimmed, I don't think you cut it entirely, but maybe down 1 or 2 if you want to experiment a bit. I've also thought about, because this is in here, maybe trying to include like Arena Battlecaster, but if you want to go the Battlecaster route, then I wholeheartedly think Azir comes back into the list. But right now, it's mostly just that this is a 3/3's worth of stats for a 2 mana cost, right? So we're running it. Demolitionist is burn. Grenadier is an okay body with like a point of burn. This actually ends up being like one of your better blockers against the many fearsome units, and you don't block often with this list, but in certain aggressive mirrors, then this actually becomes pretty important. Ruinous Path, This deck does not have a lot of card draw, so this helps in that regard, but it's really just more burn. Iron Ballista. This is the slot that you would put Azir if you want to run it. I really like Iron Ballista because if you're running into opposing like Azir Irelia decks, they don't have good answers really for Ballista because many of their units don't block and kill this outright, and the ones that do aren't usually the units that they want to block with. And now that Blossom costs 5, it's even less likely that they have units early in the game after you've played Ballista that they want to block with. So this is just, I think, really good into Azir Irelia, and so I like running it. It's also in here because we're running a 1 of decisive maneuver, and so having the extra overwhelm matters. Merciless Hunter, just an amazing 3-drop in general. We like dictating where the blockers are. In this case, it's less about trades and more about just trying to push through more damage. And then Fearsome. Fervor, we like burn. Decimate, we like burn. And then top end is Ruin Runner, which is, I think, still amazing. And again, this 1 of decisive maneuver. So decisive maneuver is great in my opinion on a list like this because while we're not going as wide as we would if we had like an Azir, for example, we've got House Spiders still, we've got all these 1-drops, so getting to the point where you can maybe pop this as a finisher is huge. But also because we are choosing to run Ballista and Ruin Runner, if you stun the unit that's blocking your overwhelm unit, then you push through even more damage, and it's a pretty big deal. So this is the list. Not a lot of subtlety. If I could say that there was a list that was a hammer, this is it. This has no subtlety to it whatsoever. There is no synergy really, you know, with the exception, like I said, of, you know, decisive maneuver on whatever unit's blocking your overwhelm unit. Okay, great. You know, if you want to call fervor on your grenadier, whoa, synergy, sure, have at it. But the reality is, like, this deck is just a hammer. Just play good stuff. If you're somebody coming from the Elder Scrolls Legends, this is like sorcerer aggro, not mid-range sorcerer where you're fighting for the board and you're doing the value trades. This is more like the old school sorcerer aggro where it was literally like just play things like Young Mammoth, right? Like just play really good units and attack, and that's what this is. And so anyway, if you managed to make it this far, if you haven't turned off the video, I guess we should go play some games so that we can go back to having fun with Legends of Runeterra. So let's do that now. And it looks like out of the gate here we're going to be up against dragons. And this is suspicious. I think we want more 1-drops. I think against this list, you're stuck just trying to go wide and praying that they don't draw too much of their life steal. You're hoping that, you know, maybe they miss the 2-drop. I think here you start with rear guard and you go with these on the follow-up round. You don't expect the Chow to trade here because it just dies. So we'll play a Reaper. This could be bait. Yep. Interesting. I can't remember the last time I've seen a lieutenant get played that didn't get the challenger. I had just accepted that this was getting shredded here, but I guess that's not the case. We could end up seeing something like a protege come down, but I think that developing before the attack here is likely correct. This means they could be saving for like a single combat. All right. Ordering matters here. The 2-1 will likely get blocked by the Chow. No, they're just gonna let that go, huh? So we lose a Reaper. No value, but we get him down to 5. And so now they're gonna bank spell mana. This might be where something like Fangs comes down with a single combat or a Sunforger. Now, the sad piece here is that we don't have a Fervor, because Fervor is the counter play that you would want here. So again, you expect them to have the single combat. This is really the only the only card that we didn't want them to have. Because Fangs is bad, but at least it's a 3-2. Because here, with the single combat, they're going to go back to 15 and keep this unit alive, maintain a blocker, etc., etc. Interesting decision, but I think you just go with the Ruin Runner. You expect them to have something like a Screecher here, but them having the Sunforger along with the single combat might just be enough for them to win this. I mean, that's just the sad reality at the moment. We're still getting them down to 5 if they go through with these blocks, and so there is hope. We're not going to abandon this game quite yet, because we get to the overrun because of the Ruin Runner. But there is concern here. All right. Again, a Fervor, and we might have had a shot. Now, if they have another single combat, if they had double Sunforger, double single combat, there's just nothing we can do. But I think here, we just do this. I fully expect them to have something here, but they did not. Okay, so there is, in fact, hope. Got a lot of mana to work with now. Our concern at the moment would be, what, something like Judgment? So we're gonna wait and see what they spend mana-wise. All right, they're gonna go below Judgment. And if we swing right now, we still don't have enough pressure, so we're gonna do this and hope they don't have another 2-drop here, as we again just try to go as wide as possible. Let's do this for the ordering. Right now the Ballista trades with everything not named Screeching Dragon, and so because of Reaper being all the way at the back there, that still ends up fine. I think they're trying to figure this out. So if they're gonna move these, they've got another combat trick. And so they have a Sharp Sight, which is gonna leave them at exactly 0. And so even with a Sunforger, now they've figured it out. Okay, so even with a Sunforger ×2 in a single combat, we're going to be able to get them down to 1, but with double Grenadier. And so we'll need to try to kill one of these before they can gain health, or just top deck some burn. Haven't really seen much of our actual direct damage burn, so there's hope. Maybe. Maybe there's hope. If they pass, then we, I think, just snap pass as well, because that would mean that they don't have an answer for the Grenadier.
I serve my people with pride.
Okay. Okay. Let's do this just to see what kind of mana we can get out of them, because I'd be worried about something like star shaping. I guess the big concern though is by not taking the open attack, we give them the opportunity to develop a lifesteal unit that they could have top decked. So that's actually a misplay there. We should have just went with the open attack and hoped that the Grenadiers were enough to get it done. Because we've seen 2 of these, but let's be honest, this is a list that's running 3 and probably also running Fangs. All right, so they surrendered. They didn't have the answer, but that was a misplay by me at the end. Make no mistake about it. But we're gonna try it again. Clean up that play. This time around, it looks like we're gonna be playing against Overwhelm, which is a bit tricky. I think this matchup actually requires us to have a really good start, because with a good draw they can run right over us. Pun obviously intended there. This is really good if they have the Omen Hawk, or even the Dune Keeper. All right, fine, we're gonna go with the Reaper. This is more aggressive, but this is safer as far as development. Now, turns out entirely unwarranted. They didn't have any of them. But alas, we'll go ahead and do this. The difference between 1 health and 2 health on this, I think, is going to be pretty small, considering, you know, if they have an exhaust or whatever here, they can run us over anyway. Preservarium is a good sign for us. All right, we're gonna order this in the way that is likely best for us. Now, they can still block here and keep this, but that allows us to push the most damage.
I'll take everything.
All right, so they're just going to get rid of the Saboteur and take the Troll Champ. That's a push down to 12, which isn't terrible. We do have some burn in hand that we can maybe make use of. Renekton comes down, but they don't have any way to challenge, which is kind of nice. And so I think we're gonna pass and see what they do as far as combat goes, because I actually would consider taking this Ruinous Path if we block there, and they opt with the nothing there, which I find to be really interesting. We're gonna go ahead with a Ruin Runner. That still leaves us with enough for at least one of our combat tricks, while also likely triggering some form of slay or a path, or a potential path. But I think this plus 2 potential combat tricks is just less impactful this round. I think next round, going into this, makes more sense. All right, so they go with a Yeti, and we're just gonna go ahead and push in roughly the same order. So the good news is this will be getting the Slay from over here, so you at least get that trade. They lose everything not named Renekton, go down to 8 with this. And then that's really going to be 6 because we'll use the Ruinous Path. And I think we're fine with that, because getting them down to 6 means our Double Fervor likely wins us the game. I say likely because there are some versions of this that run things like Riot Negation, so we will have to consider that. It's not usual that they run actual life gain, but something like Riot Negation is very relevant. So we're still at 20. We don't have to worry about being counter pressured.
Seen tombs, towns,
And with them going down to the 1 mana, at 1 mana, there is nothing in these regions that should be able to stop this. So we can just say hello and get that victory. So, yeah, fast games. You know, it's, I think, got some legs. This list, as I said during the deck description, has been doing really well on the ladder, though it is usually the Azir Darius variant, and I just wanted to play around with the Championless. You may notice I still haven't hit Masters. I decided to do some serious climbing, and then, as I also said during the deck, you know, description, deck explanation portion of the video, just kind of ran into some problems as far as, you know, affecting my playtime, at least my ladder playtime. But yeah, that's it for this video. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Thank you for putting up with the weird hiatus, weird pause in the videos, and there's likely more coming soon as I sort through the family stuff, because I still don't know, for example, what day the funeral's going to be on, and other things like that. So anyway, if you made it this far, thank you, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands.